Hello, I'm Daria Folsom from Cron 4, and it's my pleasure to sit down with this year's class of Marin Women's Hall of Fame inductees to learn about their lives, careers, and journey that has led them here to be honored in this way. Since 1987, the Hall of Fame has inducted over 150 Marin women of distinction, women who have made immense contributions to the county of Marin, its residents, as well as the world beyond. Honorees have distinguished themselves in many fields, from education to science, business, philanthropy, the arts, politics, law, philosophy, and religion. Each honoree has been a force for positive change in our community, and it is a great privilege to acknowledge and document their contributions. Today, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce Linda Witong Abrahm, who is being honored in 2024 for her pioneering work for community service. Thank you for being here, and it's a pleasure to meet you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, where do I begin?
Anywhere you want.
Well, shall we start at the beginning, since we're just meeting and maybe people are just getting an idea of who you are, even though you are pretty acclaimed and have made a real big influence on Marin.
Yeah, I hope so.
Let's start with the beginning. I mean, did you start in law? Is that... where did you begin? How did you know why you were here on the planet?
Well, I think that starts with my childhood and my family. My father came from Russia when Stalin took over and became a lieutenant commander at the U.S. Navy. And my mother came over for a better life and for freedom. And my mother's family, my grandmother used to step in front of people or horses that were being whipped and stop it. And I'm told that genetically I was wired for that. So like at 6 years old, I tried to stop a fight and I was successful.
Wait, at 6 years old?
Yes, my parents reported that I ran down the stairs across North Ferndale Avenue and there were these kids that were, fighting with each other. And what do you do with a little 6-year-old kid that says, stop it? And so they stopped it. But at any rate, what it taught me, though, was it taught me that I wanted to try and protect and serve. I think that's been my mission all my life. I wanted to do what's right and make people safe and make people have a very good life, as much as I could. And the other thing that in my early life really was formulated for me, and I'm mentioning it here, I don't usually mention my health, but I'm mentioning it because I want to inspire people out there, okay?
Absolutely.
I was given 2 hours to live when I was in birth. I made that, okay?
Wait, when you were...
Yeah, when I was being born. My mother was given 1 hour to live and I was given 2 hours to live.
So they didn't think you were going to make it?
No, but I fooled them already back then. But then I got epilepsy. And what epilepsy...
At what age did you get epilepsy?
I was born with it.
Okay.
and so it was medically under control, but the thing it taught me was that if I had convulsions, why did I want to take drugs? Why did I want to take alcohol? Why did I want to do any of that when I could do it without any control?
Okay.
And so it kept me really what I call in the 60s, when I was a teenager, like a straight arrow that way, and I could concentrate. The other thing was, it turned out I'm missing a layer of skin in my eyes, and UCSF thinks my vessels, which if they bust that, in a certain type of vessel, that's it for me.
So this is a condition that's been watched your whole life?
All my life, but when I was a kid, like you and I would be playing, and you get a scratch and I'd get 30 stitches. But I had a surgeon on retainer, and as a little kid, I would be critiquing his stitches, okay?
Really?
Really. But it taught me to be not only careful and appreciate what I have, like I'd be wearing shin guards, but I'd appreciate what I have in terms of health, in terms
Which kids don't do.
No, they don't.
Not when you're a kid.
No, they don't, but it was a gift because it made me appreciate what I had, and it made me appreciate kind people, courageous people, and people who had patience and humor, because anything else can go, but that stays in your heart and your soul. And so it made me, some would say stronger, but it made me also just appreciate life so much more.
And and this is interesting because I'm thinking of this little kid who you've got a condition, but it sounds like it's not like right on the outside at all times, like people can't see it at all times. Now, I'd imagine if you encounter something where somebody's made discriminated against or made fun of or something going on because they wear theirs on their short sleeve and they can't cover it up,
Well,
you're going to stand up for them.
Oh God, yeah. But I was wearing shin guards when I was even into being a teenager, because they wanted to protect my legs. Because
you're walking around at the mall with shin guards.
The mall, it was sort of like a mom and pop shop those days back in the 50s. But but no, I was, and
So you felt different. You did feel different.
I felt different, but on the other hand, like unlike people who get something like that late in life, I grew up with it. Mm-hmm. I grew up with it, right?
Okay.
And so I just, was just something that I had, and I was grateful to walk. I mean, that's, yeah.
Okay. So along the way, now you're not a professional of any kind yet, but
Nope.
I already can see this activist person, this kid.
You think?
So give me some stories. Yeah, I mean, you're growing up. You're 10. You're 15. How are you coming to the rescue or standing up when you don't have any real authority? When you're 10 years old.
Well, I try.
Okay,
I try. I rescued. I always rescued like animals.
Okay.
When somebody picked on one of my friends, I would try and like there was some kids that picked on one of my girlfriends, and I went and chased them back home. I mean, I just, and then when I always was attracted to law, but I went to the local schools, UC Berkeley, and I was a clerk at the Alameda DA's office, and this is how I got in this particular path.
Okay.
And I remember, it's going to go with me for my dying day, this couple was in the courthouse in this hallway, and I'm going down the hallway, and they're hugging each other, and they're sobbing because their child was murdered. Okay. Now, back in the early 70s and late 60s, there was no victims' rights. There was no victim witness department, and the DAs were doing a good job, but they were busy. They had their hands full, and I looked at them. And I said, there's so many great, because I was lucky. I was with great defense attorneys all my life, right?
Okay.
I said, there's so many great ones there, but who's going to speak for the victims? Who's going to speak for these people? Who's going to protect them? Who's going to be with them through probably what's one of the worst times in their life? And a lot of attorneys in that era, which would have been the late 70s early 70s at that point, we all got into the profession not as a stepping stone, because that's traditionally what it was, to go to private practice or judge. We got in there because we wanted to make a difference for respecting victims' rights and just make a difference, period, for our community.
But you were saying that, you were working for defense attorneys at a time?
No, I was at the Alameda DA's office.
Okay, so you didn't ever work as a defense attorney? Or, that's a different world.
Well, actually, to be a good prosecutor, you have to know what a defense attorney is going to think and do. Okay. And you also have to know, can I prove this person's guilty? Okay. So, you have to look at the facts and the evidence, and sometimes they can change from point A to point B, and determine, can you do this? Can you do this beyond a reasonable doubt?
So you see this couple who's lost a child.
Murdered,
absolutely.
Yes.
And they're not getting sort of like, nobody's holding their hand.
They're in a hallway. The court is in session, and there wasn't anybody around. They were just sobbing, and and
it can be tough on them in court, by the way, right? And they're under cross-examination
and hearing how their child may have died.
Sure.
It's a nightmare that I wish on no one.
Okay. So that's the day, really, you remember it, that you said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be...
Well, I'm going to try. I always said, I'm going to just do every day I'm going to do the best I can.
Okay.
Otherwise, you get burned out.
Okay, yes, day by day.
Day by day,
I'm not going to shoot for DA at this point.
Well,
no. So you got the degree. You went and...
I got my law school degree,
okay.
and I worked at night in law school. And I went to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and that's where I learned how to do Ninth Circuit briefs for the Court of Appeal for the Ninth Circuit. So that's where I got my research and my writing.
Okay.
And again, I was very lucky. It was really good for me to learn all of that, because I'm using it even now, research and writing and citations.
And you glossed over the law school thing. Was that just a breeze? Was that easy? Because it sounds like you were like, and so then I became,
No, actually, I think a lot of us there were certain areas where I just loved reading about the law.
Yeah.
But when you started talking about, IRS taxation and all that, it was challenging.
Okay.
But at that point, I kind of enjoyed reading about it, because I want to kind of figure out, what makes sense and what doesn't make sense.
Right.
And so if I really was interested, I usually got A's, and if I wasn't so interested, well, B.
Oh wow. Okay. All right. So you've got your credentials. You're doing your thing,
Right.
and you're learning how to read things and
Cite things and precedent, right?
And then you end up in the DA's office.
Yes, I ended up there. They said, hey, you, the quiet one. They didn't know me back then.
Okay.
They knew me by my research skills because in the U.S. Attorney's Office, I had tried cases in the federal court, like a version of Muni Court, like misdemeanors, and I did the briefs for the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Okay. So they thought of me as maybe, like doing briefs and stuff like that.
Because you're not out making an argument in court to a judge.
Not yet. No,
Okay.
no.
All right, now let's get to the courtroom. I want to see Injustice for All unfolding. You're out of order. What happened? Did you cut your teeth, in court with big cases?
I was lucky that I had great judges and great colleagues that were both mentoring me and working alongside me. And we had a great crew of people throughout my life that I was just lucky to know and to work with. And we were all working for the same thing.
You can't do it alone.
No, it literally takes a village.
Right.
But slowly but surely, I tried all sorts of cases. And then I became what's known as the felony expediter, where you make the charges and then you do the preliminary offers. In many cases, it can change, and I was very flexible. I'm doing it when I have 48 hours to issue, and things can change. It can get better. They can get worse.
Okay.
But when you're doing that, the joke was on me because I tried to avoid numbers, and when you're a charging attorney, you have to know exposure and you have to know all about numbers. And so I had to learn all about numbers. So it was another fascinating world for me.
Numbers meaning how long is this person going to serve?
Potentially, how exposure, and stuff like that. But again, the point was to try and keep Marin safe and to try and, do justice for everybody.
Have you seen that change, though? Try to keep Marin safe. So you're working, and you're trying to get criminals off the streets, or are you trying to change their lives? Are you locking them up? Are you rehabbing them? How do you know what to do?
Well, you rely on professionals that you work with that can range from the victims, the victim witness, to probation, and to your colleagues, you look at their record. And just because they have a record doesn't mean that they may not want to change, and they have changed, I remember when I had a 3 strikes case, there was a guy who he'd had 3 strikes, robberies, but he was a paramedic for 20 years. And then he went and used drugs. And theoretically back then you could be a 3 striker. And I looked and I went and said, no, we're not going to do that here. On the other hand, I have faith in the humanity, despite everything I've seen in crime scenes and also with some of the things I've seen, with people doing globally. Yeah. I believe people, if they know everything that they can about a particular topic, they're going to do the right thing. There are a couple of exceptions, like Ted Bundy, when you're kind of wired differently, at Kemper. But otherwise, I really do believe that you can make a difference. What got me was when kids started using crack cocaine or crystal meth, especially.
And now with
OxyContin, I mean, that's a one-way pass. You're dead. But in those cases, a lot of them had brain injury after that. And I would be talking to the families about how, the child may never be the same, but it's your child. You can't expect them to be, the same with a lot of this stuff, because maybe they're not going to be so lucky. At any rate, so I did that, and then in 2011, there was some tough financial times, and I and my supervisor decided we can retire so that other young attorneys could keep their job, their kids could go to school, they could keep their homes. And so my husband got this look of like a deer in the headlight. He goes, what am I going to do with you? You need to be busy. I know you need to be busy. And actually, my colleagues in law enforcement came through for both Paula Kamina and Kit Mitchell and I, and they said, well, why don't we do a catch unit, which is work on unsolved homicides? So I did that. And then while I was doing that, and I'm still doing that.
But that's sort of a police officer kind of thing.
Well, no, I'm going and looking at it from an attorney DA, ex-DA point of view and saying, what can I prove? What can't I prove? What do I need to gather? And a lot of these, law enforcement, they're not going to have the time to do all of that. They have time. We give the reports, we talk to them, but we're helping them, and we're not being paid. It's all volunteer.
So if they can't catch somebody, like within a year or whatever, the police are out there investigating.
Oh God,
right?
and most of the times they're solving it. Yeah.
But let's say you know. How much time goes by before it's considered cold?
That's up to them. That's up to them.
But then how do you solve? It must be so much harder to solve a case when 10 years have gone by. Nobody's living in the same place, and the witnesses and the
and you have the good news is you have DNA, and DNA, if it's properly maintained and you still have it, can last in some cases for a very long time. Okay. And we have, like Joe Nasso, a serial killer, we actually convicted him based on DNA from a very long period of time. But that's the good news.
Isn't that 23andMe action? Like now we all give our DNA.
Well, I think this was before 23andMe, okay. Yeah. But on the other hand, DNA can also, not be saved, or back then they thought, the DNA wasn't even talked about. And what I say now is that even if we can't solve a case now, I believe that science is going to be such that at some point they'll have maybe just a couple molecules and they can do a complete profile. But at any rate,
so this was a unit. So you began working in that.
Yeah, and I'm still working. We're still working.
You still are.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. But then what happened was I also belonged to Seroptimist International, of Novato now, but of all the world. We have 60,000 members, and again, we're for women and girls' rights.
Okay.
And by definition, their family too, because if we can improve over 50% of the population in education, in good work and all that, that's a good thing for the family, the community, everybody, okay?
And this is a worldwide
organization. And there was a notice that went out and said, we would like to have someone as an NGO United Nations delegate in dealing with stopping violence against women. And I'm going, I guess I'm qualified. So
you're going to go to the UN?
Yes. Since then, I have been privileged to represent Seroptimist International and work with other NGOs, state delegates around the world, New York, Vienna, Geneva, Africa, Asia, and
we're talking about places where women can't even drive a car.
We're talking.
Women are,
We're talking about, and right now there's even more of a pushback. But we're talking about like one state where they really don't want girls to have an education, so they decided that it was reported in reports that they poisoned the girls so that the parents would pull them from the school, and that is out there too.
Right.
But
so it's all kinds of...
What I did was, from there on in, I worked in doing, I would be a speaker sometimes, I would be on panel, I'd be a moderator, I would do a lot of research for a lot of different groups, and now for some countries too, through my UN, my SI, Seroptimist delegates.
Right.
And
how do the women in this country need help? And you would kind of...
Well, no, to give you even a better idea, and this is what I'm so grateful for, I started with violence against women on a global scale, so I found out all about that, right? I went from that to economic, health, political rights, and then COVID. I was right there with COVID, doing all the research on that.
Okay, let me stop you there, because just listening to all the issues around the world.
Oh, but I'm just getting warmed up.
I know, I'm thinking, I'm already overwhelmed. I mean, how can you feel like you make a dent? It's just so much.
Well, first I'll just sort of give you a general topic, the topics I worked on, and then I'll sort of give you some examples.
Yeah.
And then I went into, very early on, I went into the climate crisis. And early on, no, there's been pioneers, but I went into...
Linda, we haven't sold the women yet. You're going to climate now?
Oh, well, no, but the climate crisis affects women and girls far more. Especially with intersectional discrimination, like if I'm a disabled, if racial, it affects them much more.
So it's all kind of intertwined.
Oh, it's definitely linked. Okay. But then, what I was doing was Seroptimist was working with another group called Zonta and other NGOs in the Vienna, in the Alliance. And I had, based on my research from Colombia, there's a gentleman that was doing some fabulous research where he was connecting, which makes sense, he was connecting the climate crisis with migration, which we know now, but also with human trafficking, also with gender-related violence, also with any other violence, early forced child marriage. And so we saw the connections and we started talking about it. And when I get excited, I'm kind of an excited little chihuahua, I get excited, and we were talking about it in Vienna. And within a year, everyone, and now it is a mainstay issue, and it's going to only get worse. I mean, you're talking about maybe billions of people that are going to be affected by this, and be women and girls and men and boys being trafficked.
So when let me stop you there, doing the news every day, I mean, it's shocking to me that there have been more and more headlines,
yes,
especially in the Bay Area, that for some reason we are this center for human trafficking.
Well, yeah.
Well, but how do we solve that? Where is it coming from?
It's been an ongoing problem, but it now, one of the questions was going to be, that they asked me, think about was, what do you think, about Marin, what challenges Marin have, and this dovetails into it. About 4 or 5 years ago, or 3 or 4 years ago, I did an event. Actually, the Seroptimists put on an event in San Ramon about the water crisis, and we had experts, and we were saying, folks, it's real. It's here, and it's going to get worse.
Right.
Okay, and I also did, talk to my people everywhere I was, and tried to educate them. And a couple people asked a good question. They said, "Well, our water." This is before Orville Dam happened. They said, "Our water system is fine." I go, "Okay, where are the 40% of people going to go that might be by 1930, 1940, or strike that 2030 or 2040? Where are they going to go if they don't have enough adequate water?" Curious minds want to know. Oh, and then I would say, "You remember The Big Short, the movie, and the guy, the genius, what he was investing in the end?" And they go, "Water." And I go, "Yeah." And this was a couple of years ago. And now with the studies that we have, the water crisis is making people far more vulnerable to all types of exploitation, including trafficking, and we're talking billions. If this isn't dealt with, we're talking billions of people, women and girls in particular, that will be affected by all sorts of gender-related violence, human trafficking, early child marriage, because their families can't support them. They're lucky if they can support themselves. But in addition to that, Marin, in my mind, the number one crisis is the World Health Organization says 99% of us, based on our current data, are breathing unsafe air. All right. We also have an issue about water crisis. We're already starting to monitor that. Right. I see Marin. I'm hoping, and they've usually been very progressive, I'm hoping that they're going to deal with both of these to the best of their abilities. They have forest fires that are just making matters worse, and you've got the water crisis, which isn't going anywhere. Wells are being dimmed. So to me, that is something that I'm hoping Marin's going to really address and continue to address. I hope the legislature will address and continue to address.
So where are you putting most of your brain power and energy right now then?
Well, before I came here, I'm on the board of the NGO Alliance in UN Vienna. That's criminal justice and crime prevention. And our committee that I'm on just finished doing a paper about stopping torture by non-state actors. That's organized crime, terrorists, private parties, because in many countries, and actually, there's no treaty that specifically deals with torture by a non-state actor. They deal with the state, and it's rising. They're able to commit crimes with impunity, and we want to stop that. So that's what I do. And then also, I belong to a committee now in UN Vienna that's dealing with the climate crisis and how it's affecting like organized crime. And I'm going to have a great speaker at some point on that. I mean, from Italy. Actually lives in France now, but he's Italian. And then I'm going to be dealing with the incoming president. I'm going to be dealing with the climate crisis, and always education, because I believe people need to be educated no matter what.
And because you're working on a national and world level, you're talking about the incoming
local,
president.
I'm local, California, national. Yeah, I'm talking about international. Yeah, I've been appointed to work.
Have you worked with a lot of presidents in the past?
The Seroptimist international presidents, four or five. I think four, four.
I'm wondering in your work, because it is so, I mean, from being, in the DA's office to the work that you're doing now, you could have a lot of enemies out there, and I'm wondering.
You mean, is my face on a post office box?
Yeah. I mean, have you ever had a problem with, or being just intimidated in some way, or?
No, not intimidated. No,
Flat out threatened. Have you ever been worried? I mean, it's you're taking a stand, and anytime you do, you.
Well, when I was in court, some people would charge at me, and I
physically right there.
Yeah, well, and I said, give it your best shot, and sometimes we had to take additional precautions, if you were dealing with a sensitive case. With the UN, I would probably have to be careful what countries I go to, but I think basically. Number one, in some countries, just being a woman, you have to be careful. But in a very small percentage of countries, I'd probably think twice before I went there. Yeah. Right. But do I know if I'm in any mailbox? Like, have you seen this person? I don't know. I'm not following that.
And you seem not to care. I mean, you're like, I'm standing up, kind of like you were when you were 6 years old.
Yeah.
I'm just going to protect what I see.
I can't. I'm working with people, human rights defenders, who are getting killed more and more. They're getting killed more and more for standing up for human rights, for even the planet rights, right? I'm working with people side by side who we all want to protect and serve. That's a tradition that I'm carrying. Even my sailing club, they know when they go out in the water, if someone's in distress, protect and serve, right? Law enforcement, protect and serve. And the UN, these people, very often not working for any money. They're there to do the best they can every day to protect and serve. Countries, NGOs, all of civil society is there to just do the best they can. Or as what is it in Keep On Swimming, the Disney one, you keep on swimming, a tsunami comes, you just keep on swimming, keep on swimming. And my belief is that you just keep trying to educate people about perhaps what they don't know or what they're choosing not to know. And you keep reminding them of what they've agreed to. In research, I think that's a wonderful thing, what's called precedence. You remind them if they decide that they wanted to go a different way. You remind them, wait a minute, this human right, you agreed to this in all of these treaties or in all of these times. We need to hold you to your pledges.
I'm wondering, with all that you do you have kids?
No, I wasn't lucky enough to do, but they used to call me Yoda and Mama Bear with the people
children.
I worked with. Yeah,
I can see that, and I was just
Yoda
wondering,
for those special challenges, and Mama Bear for.
You have a lot of kids. I mean, you have really every.
I try.
Especially almost seems like every girl or woman out there is your kid specifically, because it seems like you're really wanting to make the world a better place.
Well, in some cases, for their perspective, when I'm going out there, I'm like the dragon lady, trying to, try and stop things and stuff like that. But believe me when I say I'm working with people in the UN that are just outstanding and inspire me, and the people I work here with every day, in law enforcement, my sailing club, Seroptimist International, around the world, 60,000 members plus. Every day they're getting up and going, how can I protect and how can I serve? How can I educate? How can I make the world a better place?
Do you think that, you talked about your challenges growing up and health conditions and everything else and where you came from, and I'm wondering if you look at kids these days or people, do you think, even me, we take everything for granted. Oh, life is too easy for us. I'm just wondering if you...
No, I think, I think every person has had struggles. Every person has had challenges and that are important to them, and in very many times is important to what they do and their whole family and everything. And I never think, oh, well, you got it easy or you have it easy, because I don't know. You cannot judge a book by its cover, and I don't know what else is going on in their lives. Some of them will send out messages to you, like they'll act out, or they'll start crying or doing something to show that they're in distress. Some of them will do their best to hide it, and all I can say to them is, just do the best you can. Do something you love, you're passionate about, and you'll be good at it, and you'll be happy. Do something, be your own caretaker. You got to be, I got to be me. I don't see anybody else standing in line to do it, all right? If you're going to make the mistakes that you believe, is right. Don't do what other people say you should do unless you think it's right. And with the people, I see, especially in domestic violence, and I've seen women and I've seen people rise to the occasion who are so courageous and so brave to step out of the pattern, because in very often, it's a pattern that at least they are comfortable. They know it. They know the pattern. But if they're going out and about on their own, and they have to support themselves, and they don't know what the patterns are, they want something that they can be used to, unless, of course, all of a sudden someone is trying to kill them or their kids are being harmed. And so I admire bravery and courage where I see it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where you're trying to make a difference, is
help them.
Help them. You see somebody who's trying to come out of that difficult time, and you're just trying to help them not be knocked down. Just like give her some room.
Yeah. Well, or in the UN, I'm helping people who, sadly, have no rights in some cases, or they can't take the rights that we have here for granted. And so I'm trying to help them, get those rights and to make their lives good, make them have a very good life that they love. And for some of them, it can be like Seroptimus has all sorts of programs where we're educating women and girls. We're training them in like a craft or a job. And they're so happy, and they're making money. They have their community. They're being productive. And that's great. But I mean, those are the people I work with.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess it almost seems to me like, just looking at you, even as from a little kid to now, when I see you and how I hear your background, it sounds like you never, there's never anything you encountered that you thought you couldn't do.
Income tax law.
Income tax law.
There was a certain model.
You're not nuts about numbers. I mean, you did make that clear.
Well, I can do numbers. I can do numbers. I did it for sentencing, but there were certain courses in law that I stayed a respectful distance. I always got a passing grade, but you weren't going to see me sign up.
But you seem kind of like a no limits person. I wonder how you even got to think like that. Like anything is possible.
Well, my father actually used to tease me because I was an only child, right? And so I felt a responsibility. I had to do the best I could for my family. So my dad looked at me and said, "So when are you going to be the president of the United States?" Right?
I'm about to ask that myself.
Right. Well, no. And I mean, so he would, in a half joking and half teasing manner, he sort of said, back when I was 1950s even, that you can do, if you set your mind to it, you can do what you want to do. And I say, yeah, within limits. There's probably things I could do either because of health issues or whatever like that. But if it comes to, defending little animals, critters, people, the environment.
There's nothing you won't take on.
Well, so far, no.
So far, no. Okay.
It's almost the first time.
And I guess I would ask, moving forward, now that you've gotten this incredible recognition and everybody is honoring your huge body of work, moving forward, what would you want to do next? Is there anything left?
I actually am perfectly happy doing what I'm doing. When I go back and work on cases with my law enforcement colleagues, we're trying to do the best we can do to see that justice is done and to see that there's closure in cases. Whether there's closure, the suspect is still alive or not, but closure. And I feel honored to do that. I feel honored to work with them and the people that we reach out to. The UN is a huge honor, Seroptimus International and all the other groups I work along with Seroptimus International, the delegates that I work with in different countries who ask me questions or ask me to do research. I feel I'm being very useful. And that, I guess, was the other thing about my personality. I like to work and I like to be useful. And it gives me great joy if I do something and someone says, yeah, this is great, we can use this. I can't talk about the negotiation stages and all that, but sometimes that helps too, because I remind somebody or some country about a treaty in a certain section, paragraph such and such, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, this will help us in the language, this will help us make our argument. And I like feeling useful. And I don't have to be in the front, you know. I've been a speaker, I've been a panelist, I've been, you know, a moderator, but I don't have to be in the front. I'm perfectly content in the back, chortling with my computer. Every now and then my fluffy cat comes in and tries to tell me it's time to feed her or something. But, you know, working on my computer and just creating language or whatever they want, just doing the best I can.
Do you know, I heard a quote, I think it was from Colin Powell, and he said, "There's no limit to the good you can do if you don't mind who gets the credit."
Yeah, yeah.
And that stuck with me, and it sounds like that's kind of where you're coming from.
Yeah, especially young people. I go, you know, some people, like one case, they wanted me to speak rather than a young one that had been selected.
Right.
And I said, no, I said, look, I've been there, done that. You know, I've been there and done that for decades. I said, here's a young one that's going to look really good on her resume, and she gets a chance to speak. Let her speak. You know, I'll give you the notes, so I'll help you, but yay, team. Yeah.
You already have what a lot of people, I think, you know your purpose, and it seems like you've known it.
Mission,
yeah, your mission,
Yep.
like why you're on the planet.
Yep.
And I think for people who are wondering, because not everybody's so lucky. Some people are wondering at 40 or 50 still, like, why am I here? Why am I here? What am I meant to do? What would I die for? Like, what is important to me? And I don't know, I guess, is there anything?
I'm genetically wired. I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it. I couldn't
Right.
help it. You know, a couple of times, you know, I thought, well, you know, when I was in law school, is this what I really want to do?
Yeah.
And it's just sort of, there was always a hand that was sort of just invisibly guiding me and going, child, you need to be in this mission. You need to protect and serve. You need to just, no, don't dawdle over there in corporations.
Do you think angels are real? Do you think there is some kind of something?
I believe I have a fairy godmother that probably has been at the bar a couple of times, not drinking just one drink, but a bottle in the past.
Taking care of you.
Yeah, taking care of me. No, I believe that that angels, that there's a force out there that if you're doing good, especially, at least I've experienced it, it's a very powerful force that makes it so much easier to do what you're doing.
Interestingly, I've only met a couple of the inductees so far, and it seems like you all are saying the same thing, but you're doing, in other words, you have the same intent, but you're doing it with a different job and a different career in a different way.
Yeah.
And one of the inductees told me, well, I'm just here to spread as much love as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And her job was completely different than yours.
Yeah.
But it sounds like that's kind of what you're doing.
I need to get people that can live a comfortable life, free of violence, and economically and everything else have a good life for their family. Because I believe around the world, governments may be some governments may be an exception, but I believe that people around the world, what they want is they want their families and themselves to be at peace, to have a good life, and a better life for their kids if they can. I really believe that, and the people I work with, whatever form you want to pick, also believe that. That we're out there to make lives better and protect people in the process.
Well, I feel safer with you behind the wheel. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
I really appreciate it, and congratulations on this. And it's been a joy to spread, a little bit of your personality and history and accomplishment to everybody who's watching. So thank you, Linda.
Thank you, and you're making a difference too. Every day you're making a difference.
Thank you for that.
You're making people think. You're making people maybe go and think outside the box, and certainly just there's someone out there that cares and that will give them input.
Well, right back at you. Thank you for
You're
your
welcome.
story, your incredible life, for sharing it, and thank you viewers for tuning in.